What's up, YouTube? This is Team Rio. I'm Herb, and I'm here with one of my teammates, Geoffrey, and
What's up, guys?
he's gonna give us his opinion on the new ban list that hit V-Jump magazine, and we're gonna say this it's true, and hypothetically speaking, we're gonna give you some choices on what are good tech cards, considering the list is real, and just good tech cards in general for next format, and on decks that we think that we're gonna be seeing next format. So here he is.
All right, guys. If you haven't seen the V-Jump magazine yet, the balance that supposedly came out in there, like V-Jump has always been a reliable source for ban lists. Most of the time, Mega Capital G actually covered this. That's how I actually found out about this. If you guys haven't seen it, go check out that video. You'll see exactly the ban list that's shown in the video, in the magazine. So I'm gonna base this off of the ban list that's on the magazine, no, supposed magazine. But even then, even if the balance that's on the magazine isn't completely correct, or if the real balance deviates a little bit off of that, like what I'm gonna present here is still gonna be very viable for next format. So obviously, we have the two main decks for this format. Obviously, sack and on sack, pretty much. Like spellbooks and dragons, honestly, they single-handedly ruined this format. It's a horrible format, one of the worst ones, honestly, in the past couple of years, in my opinion. Like you're either running this or you're pretty much getting destroyed. So like people started getting techier and techier, and we saw like Alexander Thomas top with Majolches, in the World Championship qualifier, but. Even then, he has to like tech in so many options into his deck, just to compete with this. And nothing against him, I love the deck. I love the Dolces and everything like that. But I think that just speaks to like how bad the meta got. Like people had to main deck a bunch of options into their deck, or play like anti-meta decks such as like Evil Swarm, just to keep up with this. All right, so obviously we can see the two decks that are probably gonna be seen next format, like. Assuming that these two get hit, and these two will probably get hit from a what do you call it? From a business standpoint, they have to hit these decks if they want to make money off of Judgment of the Light. So honestly, we can see two decks next format. We can see Water and Fire. With the release of Rooster, we can definitely see Firefist making a comeback next format. Like they were kind of big when Water first came out with the Gen X on 9 build. But as Mono Mermail came out, Water got faster, and then Dragons came out, and they were pretty much left in the dust, but now with Rooster being released, it has just so much speed to the deck, it gives you so many synchro options, you can net pluses for days, and, it can really compete with the meta. Even, I've actually seen some builds that can even compete with Dragons, in this format, so that really speaks to the deck. On the balance on the V-Jump magazine, it limits Rooster to 1. I honestly think that, it balances out the deck a lot for next format, because we definitely want to see a slower format next format. And I definitely think that limiting Rooster to 1 is actually a very good move. Either limiting Rooster or Tensu to 1. I honestly think that that'll balance out the deck a little bit more. And then obviously we have Water, which will probably, on the V-Jump magazine, Tias and Abyss Sphere, I think, got hit to 1. I honestly think that those were two pretty good hits. Like I love Mermail. Herb knows that. Like I ran Mermail for a while. I tested out different builds. I actually showed Herb a couple techs here and there, and I might actually make a video on a couple of Mermail techs for next format. I love the deck, but I personally didn't. Agree with the hits that they actually did. Assuming that is correct, obviously. So we can definitely see these two decks next format. Even though Mermail is most probably gonna get hit, we can still definitely see Mermail coming back strong next format, especially with this card. Fishborg Archer. It's an incredible tech. The second I saw it, that I was a level 3 water type. And Herb mentioned this in his profile, so I don't need to go too much into it. But like it has so much synergy with the deck, and it brings so much to the table. Consistency wise and combo wise, so like I can definitely see it being a contender for next format. And if you've actually seen some of the builds for 3-axis, you know, the OCG builds and stuff like that, you'll see that they have massive back row hate. You know, like triple MST Gaioku, I think that's what it's called. I actually have it right here. Let's see what it's called. This spell card. Yeah, Gaioku. You know, they run triple MST, double Gaioku, you know, one Night Beam, you know, and it's just massive back row hate. But since the format's going to slow down, I can definitely see slower decks that rely a little bit more on back row coming back. You know, Mega Capital G actually mentioned TG Stun being a bit more viable now that the format's slowing down. You know, like we can obviously see Modolches coming out, you know, with Alexander Thomas topping. You know, Modolche being a very good deck, being very compatible with back row control. You know, and you know they can side deck cards, you know, like Imperial Iron Wall, and you know a lot of these cards that don't hurt them, and they can just control the game. You know, so I can definitely see like back row heavy decks coming back next format, and I can also definitely see these coming into the side deck more for next format. You know, like I have 3 cards right here. They're common side deck cards. You know, like MST, Trap Stun, and Rolled Cream. I can definitely see these having a lot more playability next format, but you know, like just in the beginning of the format. You know, once Fire Fist start picking up, you know, once people start once people see that people are running like back row heavy decks again, you know, Fire Fist and any other deck that can definitely run massive back row destruction is definitely going to run like triple MST, you know, double Night Beam or something, you know, just to clear out the back row. So I definitely see these being viable early format, because I can definitely see back row decks coming back. Not now that these decks are probably going to get hit. All right, and then a couple tech side deck choices. Well, Defusion is not very tech, but I definitely consider these 2 tech side deck choices for next format. Chain Disappearance is actually the one that I want to focus on. Chain Disappearance against Fire Fist is very strong. It's a very powerful trap card against Fire Fist because turn 1 they usually want to go for, you know, the spirit play where they go for a Horse Prince right here. They usually want to go for the spirit, and then they'll go Leopard, Tribute Leopard, get a Tensu, you know, summon the spirit, you know, get the Leopard back from the grave, you know, Synchro, and like all that stuff. You know, they'll go off and they'll plus massively. If you go second against Fire Fist, and you draw this first hand and you set it, and if they don't have any back row destruction, or if they blind MSC, you know, the wrong back row, you know, and they go to summon the spirit. You know, sure, they'll get the second summon, but you'll remove all their recycling engine from their deck. You know, Spirit is such an important key card in Fire Fist. In 3-axis Fire Fist. You know, people get are saying, you know, like, oh, Rooster's, you know, the broken card. You know, Rooster's what makes the deck and all that stuff. And sure, Rooster nets the deck a lot of advantage. You know, and it opens up a lot of plays. But this card is actually the problem in the deck. You know, this is what recycles. You know, this is the main tuner of the deck. You know, without the tuner, you know, they can't go into synchros. They can't go into one card XYZs. You know, this Chain Disappearancing all their spirits from their deck is gonna slow them down massively. And if they want to go for like something like a Levier or something like that to get a tuner out, even though they're gonna have to invest a lot of resources just into a Levier, just to bring back a spirit that's probably going to that they're probably just gonna have to recycle back into the deck somehow, and then get it to their hands somehow again, and then use it. So I can definitely see Chain Disappearance being a viable side deck for next format. And even against Mermail, it's not such a bad thing, because I can definitely see Diva being played at 3, especially if Mermails are gonna get hit. You know, and just Chain Disappearancing all their Divas. You know, getting to see your opponent's hand. You know, if all the copies can be accounted for. You know, that's just very powerful, in my opinion. You know, like, sure, they'll, like Spirit, they'll get the summon off of the effect, but you'll get rid of a lot of their... You'll eliminate all the Divas from their deck, and in Fire Fist, you'll eliminate all the recycling engine from the deck. You know, like, other than Cardinal, you know, to recycle the spells, the deck, Fire Fist doesn't have much recycling power. Alright, and then I'll talk about Defissure last. Memory loss, you know. I have no idea why people are disregarding this card, you know. It's honestly a Veiler that you can send in your Spawn Traps card zone. And even though it might get MST'd, sure, you know, like, oh, and just so you guys, if you guys don't know what this does, here, I'll read it. You can look it up too. It came out in Lord of the Tachyon Galaxy. It says, when the face-up attack position monster your opponent controls just activated an effect, negate that effect, and if you do, change that monster to face-up defense position. You know, this honestly is very powerful against cards like Dracossack. You know, we're still gonna be able to see Dracossack next format. You know, we're definitely gonna see Dracossack next format. You know, with Harpies can go into rank 7s. Mermails are obviously still gonna be able to go into rank 7s, and other decks that are like level 7 heavy, that go into rank 7s like Machina Redox, or cards like that. You know, that revolve around a lot of effects and can go into rank 7s very easily, you know, like this, or just any deck that's over reliant on decks like Fire Fist. You know, this is a very powerful card. Like, just a quick scenario, you know, like let's say you know for a fact that your opponent has a Tensen set in the back row, set in their back row, somewhere in their back row, or if you're afraid of a Tensen in the back row, you know. With a bear, if you Veiler or bear after it's used its effect, you know, it still stays in attack position and it can still punch over one of your monsters. Now, if you memory lost them, they'll go into defense position. You'll avoid cards like Tensen, Lance, you know, things that boost the attack, and you'll even avoid cards that give them boosts, like small boosts like Gyoku, Tenki, Tensu, you know, that give them the 100 attack boosts here and there. You know, you'll avoid that altogether. You know, and you can easily punch over the monster because if I'm not mistaken, most Fire Fist monsters have pretty low defense, don't they? Like 1200 or something like that. Yeah.
They're pretty low. Bear has 1200 defense.
Yeah, exactly. You see, like you could, I run Thunders. You can punch over that with a Paw Hunter. You know, like that's pretty funny if you think about it. You know, like I would definitely recommend running Memory Loss for next format, especially since we're gonna see Fire Fist coming back. You know, like I personally I see machine decks coming back next format, especially since you know, like one of our friends, DG, he actually posted up a duel recently. You know, he runs Geoffrey Karakuri Redox, I think.
Yeah.
Geoffrey Karakuri Machina Redox.
Yeah,
Jesus
that's
Christ.
name. Yeah. Long name.
Yeah. He runs that deck, so like and it's pretty reliant on effects, you know, and it's pretty powerful, honestly. If it has a pretty good matchup against Mermails, it has a pretty good matchup against a lot of decks, especially with Fortress. And I can honestly see Memory Loss being a viable side deck option for next format. You know, even main decking one copy wouldn't hurt because it's a pretty good out to cards like Ophion. You know, you Memory Loss or Ophion, and if they don't have a pandemic, you can easily run over the Ophion because the Ophion has like what 1600 defense, 1650,
yeah,
somewhere around there.
So.
You know, like, you can easily run it over, and you know, and they can't even if they like chalice you or you know they last you or something, you know, like to lower your attack of your monster, you know, the chances are, you know, like you're gonna be able to run it over with another monster. You know, they're not gonna be able to keep that Ophion alive for very long if they don't have the if you resolve this. So yeah, I would definitely recommend citing these two cards. You know, I can see them being viable next format. I'm definitely citing the Chain Disappearance for next format. You know, with especially with Fire Fist, you know, because Fire Fists are very fast, very strong, very consistent deck. You know, it's very hard to draw battle with that deck. Honestly, that's the way I see Mermails right now, without them being hit. You know, it's very hard to draw battle with the deck, especially with different techs. You know, that I'll discuss later on in a different video. You know, it's very hard to draw battle with these decks. You know, and the fact that it's very hard to draw back with these decks, you know, you have to remove their engine as fast as possible. You know, and cards like Chain Disappearance, you know, like helps with that a lot. And the last side deck card I can see being very viable next format is D-Fissure. D-Fissure wasn't very viable this format because dragons obviously still get their effects when they're discarded. You know, it doesn't even touch spellbooks. And Evil Storm will run macro in the main deck sometimes. You know, so D-Fissure wasn't a very viable side deck card in this format, but I can definitely see it being a viable card next format. Obviously, with Mermails coming back, and this is obviously my opinion. You know, I really think that Mermails are gonna make a comeback next format. You know, even if they do get hit. You know, with Bujins coming out, you know, like if you've ever gone against Bujin, you know, once they have their engine rolling with Yamato. They have the crane in their hand, you know, they have a possible honest, you know, you drop the D-Fissure, you know, they can't discard the honest, you know, to increase its attack. You can't drop the crane to double the attack, you know. And obviously everyone knows that Diffusion against Mermails just utterly destroys them. You know, they can't go for any plays, they can't summon any monsters. So obviously I see this card being viable next format, and especially with slower decks coming back, decks that are relying on the grave. You know, I can definitely see it being viable next format. Alright, onto tech monster choices, you know, like, or just side deck options in general. You know, I put it in a list of importance. How much time are we at right now?
15 minutes.
All right, okay. I'll just wrap it up right here. I put it in a list of importance. You know, obviously Valor. I honestly see Valor being one of the most important main deck hand traps for next format, or cards similar to that, like Breakthrough Skill, Venus Chain. You know, because honestly, next format is going to be very effect heavy decks. You know, topping. You know, I can honestly see Mermails. I can honestly see Fire Fist. Obviously, you don't want to keep the Valors in for Mermails, but main decking it for Fire Fist, because you're definitely going to see a lot more Fire Fist than Mermails next format. So, Valor is obviously a very good main deck. You know, obviously, you know, like, as I don't know if most of my Herb here knows that I freaking love Maxi. I love Maxi. Like, this is one of my favorite cards, you know, in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! You know, like, it was so funny, we went to Frankensteins one time, and I couldn't get my Maxi secret, and I actually got pretty pissed. Herb actually knows, like, I got a bunch of other stuff, you know, like max rarity and stuff like that, and then I was like just pissed off because I couldn't get the Maxis, you know, I couldn't get a good deal. You know, I finally got my Maxis, so whatever, you know, but, you know, like, Maxi is one of my favorite cards, so, you know, this might be a little bit biased, but I'm definitely main decking Maxi for next format. You know, game 1 against Fire Fist, you know, it's live. Game 1 against Mermails, it's live. You know, it's dead against Bujins and what do you call it? Evil Swarms. But even then, you can still 1-for-1 with Evil Swarms. You know, the only real deck that is dead against is Bujins that I can see being part of the meta next format. But even then, like how I said, slower decks that spam. You know, I can see windups making some appearance here and there at locals. You know, I can definitely see Maxi being a viable main deck option along with Valor. You know, like, people are thinking, you know, like, oh, Valor's the better main deck choice, you know, but I personally like Maxi over Valor. You know, that doesn't go to say that I don't have other effect negation in the deck, but the fact of the matter is, you know, like, you definitely want to side deck main deck at least one copy of each of these for next format. You know, because you want a very versatile, like, game. You want a deck that's very versatile for game 1s next format, because you're gonna see like a lot of decks next format. Honestly, with Dragons and Spellbooks gone, you know, people are gonna get a lot more creative with decks. You know, like, we're gonna see Modolches, we're gonna see, you know, Redox splash into like Psychics, we can see Redox splash into like Machinas. You know, we're gonna see a lot of decks, you know, that spam, you know, that are effect reliant. So you definitely want to side deck hand traps for next format. Alright, and then for the last two tech monster choices that I have is Thunder King Rio and Cyber Dragon. Obviously, these two cards usually haven't strayed from side decks or main decks. You know, I love Thunder King Rio. It's one of my favorite cards. So I try to main deck at least one copy in most of my decks, and it puts in so much work. Against Fire Fist, turn 1, if you summon the Rio, and if you don't know what they're playing, you know, and if they need to get rid of this Rio right away, and if they don't have the blaster, and if the ban list is correct, and they don't have like cards like Burner, you know, to bring out the blaster, at least to stall, you know, they're going to have to like waste a significant amount of resources just to get rid of this. You know, they might have a bear and a Tinky in hand. They might have to like burn the Tinky, you know, not get a search, you know, send the Tinky to grave, pop it with the bear, and then punch in, but then they still can't activate the Tinky during that turn. You know, it has Thunder King Rio is very versatile, and even against Mermails, you know, people might assume, oh, you know, like, you can't negate the summons of like Megalo or Tias because they're not inherent summons, but even though they're not inherent summons, those monsters still search. You know, like, and they're gonna go minus, you know, just to get rid of one card. You know, they're gonna discard it. Let's say they only have like a Dragoons and like a Marksman in hand and a Megalo. You know, they're gonna have to ditch those two. They're gonna go -2 just to get rid of Tiki. You know, they're not gonna get the Sphere search. They're not gonna get the Abyss Squall search. You know, they're not gonna get the Dragoon search. You know, and the Dragoon search is really important in the Mermail deck. it adds consistency to the deck. It keeps it rolling. And Cyber Dragon, like how I've been stressing, we're gonna see a lot more decks next format, and I can definitely see machines making a comeback next format. With Redox being splashable, and the Mass Chameleon card, the one that came out in Lord of Judgment of the Light, the ultra rare card. It can be splashed in what do you call it, in Machina, because the gear frame has 0 defense, so you can just go for a 1-card level 8 synchro, and so I can definitely see people running machines next format, and Cyber Dragon just destroys machine decks. Like they're gonna have to waste like warnings, bottomlesses, torrentials, even sometimes, just to get rid of the Cyber Dragon. And most of the time they're gonna minus themselves, or they're gonna waste staple traps, to get rid of something that's not really worth it. So yeah, that's pretty much my analysis for next format. We're gonna see a variety of decks for next format. A lot more creativity now that these 2 stupid decks are gone. Freaking hate these decks. Like I get personally, I've built decks that have very good matchups against these decks. Like Mermails, and other control-based decks. But I just hate these decks. They take away too much from the game, and I'll be very glad when these decks are no longer, part of our meta. So yeah, we're definitely gonna see a ton of innovative decks, with all these new support cards that are coming out, like all the new XYZs that are coming out, like Plant XYZs, with all the E-Dragons being splashed into different decks, I'm very excited to see, what, how people are going to be taking in all these new cards, into the new decks, to make them more consistent, make it faster, make it, have better recovery, like all of these things, that these new cards are adding. I'm really excited to see how people get creative with these things. This is my input. These are all just my opinions. All I can hope is that you take something out of this. I'm definitely gonna be side decking some of these stuff, main decking some of this stuff. And I've actually tested out some of these things against next formats decks, well, some of the next formats decks. And through trial and error, I have actually concluded that some of these are some of the better side decks. So, that's pretty much it. I just want to give a quick overview of what we can see next format, and that's pretty much it. All right, guys. All
right, YouTube. So as you can tell, we're really looking forward to next format, and can't wait till the actual ban list comes out. So stay tuned. We'll make a video on Mermails probably next. So catch you later, YouTube.